Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome into the incredible Ocean Casino in Atlantic City from the Gallery Bar. Booking games. I'm Marc Farzetta for the Malamut pregame show ahead of the Eagles and Kansas City Chiefs, both returning from their bye week and what most people are billing in the obvious, which is a Super Bowl rematch. Me, myself, and I know a lot of Eagles fans in our panel as well, we are more concerned about the Super Bowl preview. Moving on from Super Bowl 57 to Super Bowl 58. The best team, the number one seed in the NFC, taking on the number one seed in the AFC, with the Eagles battling the Chiefs today at Arrowhead Stadium. Congratulations, we're all getting pumped for Monday Night Football. Let's bring in our panelists today. Of course, we have Eagles Hall of Famer Mr. Seth Joyner here on the program, and we have Bill Colarulo as well. Derek Gunn, our friend, will be joining us on the post-game show for a segment. He's still dealing with a personal issue, and our prayers are still with Gunner and his family. Seth, Bill, we're looking at this game tonight, of course, with that Super Bowl rematch that a lot of people are talking about. And I have to say, I love one of the things that have come out of this week from head coach Nick Sirianni, saying you can't win the ring on Monday night. How much does that factor into this game when it comes to a player's mindset, Seth?
Well, listen, it's tough to say. There is a psychological side of this game. This isn't a must-win for this football team, but from a psychological standpoint, it's a must-win. They haven't beaten Andy Reid. They've lost to this team, the last two times they played them. From a psychological standpoint, this is a game that they need. And I think that it would bode well for them going into this stretch of games that they have going on. I agree with Nick. Listen, you're not going to win the Super Bowl tonight, but psychologically it can take you to higher heights if you can win this game tonight, if you can beat this team that you've struggled against, if you can come out and prove that this team is not invincible, that Patrick Mahomes isn't invincible. For me, it's really going to be a game of chess tonight. The chess match, I'm not so worried about the players as much as I am worried about how the coaches are going to react. Because let's just be honest, Andy Reid and his staff, they basically took Eric Bieniemy and Steve Spagnuolo. They took Nick Sirianni and his staff to the woodshed in the second half last year. So the question is, you had an extra week, you got some guys healthy. What did you learn from your experience last year in the Super Bowl playing this team, and what adjustments can you make against the adjustments that you're going to see? Because it is going to be a tale of two halves. There's going to be a game plan that Andy Reid and his staff has in place for the first half, but when the rubber really meets the road and it's time to find out who's going to win this game and who's going to lose it, there's going to be some adjustments made in the second half, and then we're going to see how much growth not only this football team but this coaching staff has matured over the last 7-8 months.
You mentioned Patrick Mahomes, and Bill, watching this Kansas City Chiefs team throughout the season. Of course, they lose. Their only loss at home this season was Week 1 against the Detroit Lions, who obviously look like a force to be reckoned with now in the NFC. The Eagles are going to have to watch out for down the line maybe. But when you look at that offense, they're averaging a touchdown less per game this season. What are you seeing that is different, especially with Eric Bieniemy no longer being their offensive coordinator? What are you seeing different with that offense that maybe the Eagles hadn't seen last year in the Super Bowl?
They don't have the playmakers at the wide receiver position that they've had in previous seasons. And if you look at what they're doing, they're still number 5 in the NFL in passing yards, but they're doing it throwing balls very close to the line of scrimmage. Even though they're number 5 in passing yards, they're number 29 in yards before catch, meaning Patrick Mahomes is not throwing the ball very far down the field. But where they're number 1 is yards after catch. They have over 1,400 yards after catch. You hear about Yak all the time. The Chiefs do it better than anybody. So the Eagles really need to make sure they tackle well tonight because they don't have the speed to beat you deep. And we say it every week when we're watching these games, Seth especially, get up to the line of scrimmage. Challenge these receivers. Well, if you're not going to do it tonight, I don't know when you're going to do it because they don't have the playmakers to beat you over the top. They're going to try to throw short, quick passes to hit these guys in space. get up to the line, don't give them clean releases, especially Travis Kelce.
Seth, we were talking earlier, Bill and I, on Birds 365, filling in for John McMullen, who'll be joining us from Arrowhead Stadium coming up in a little bit here on the Malamut pregame show. But will tonight, possibly, could it be, we actually see defensive backs of the Philadelphia Eagles, Sean Desai, having them at the line of scrimmage to help defend against the situation that Bill just laid out? Well,
I think a lot of it has to do, with who's active tonight. If they get Bradley Roby back, if the two safeties who now have had 2 more weeks to heal up for one and 2 more weeks for another guy to kind of get up to speed with what's going on with this defense, and rest for your 2 cornerbacks, who really haven't looked spectacular all season long. It all depends, because for a defensive coordinator, it's really about, do you trust the guys that are on the field enough to call your full repertoire of defenses that allows you to show Patrick Mahomes and Brian Nagy all of these different things that you can do? Or do you have to keep it simplified because you're not sure whether the young guys are going to make the mistakes or not? With the full repertoire, I look for these guys, to make the improvement. Listen, they rank against the pass 29th in the National Football League, giving up 257 yards per game. That is their Achilles heel right now. So you can either sit back against the greatest quarterback, of this era and allow him to pick you apart bit by bit and move down the field every single possession, or you can get up and you can challenge wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. You can offset, the timing routes by being able to jam guys and disrupt routes, and you can take guys away by being physical with them at the snap of the ball. Or you can sit back and allow the obvious to happen, because he's smart enough to pre-snap, know what you're in, to make the right adjustments, and to go to the right place with the ball. Now, the only advantage that a defense has against a quarterback like this is to be physical with the wide receivers, to throw the timing off, make him come off his first route right now, go to the second. That's going to give the rush time to get to Patrick Mahomes in a way that they couldn't because of the field. Yeah, I said it, because of the field in the Super Bowl.
Okay, so all right, now it might be a little drizzly tonight. I've been talking about the same thing all week. I talk about Hassan Reddick. I talk about Josh Sweat. I talk about them being able to get that angle to get into the backfield. When you look at the interior defensive line, a guy like Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs, he's not going to be as impacted when it comes to rushing the passer because he's just pushing straight ahead. How much will the field conditions tonight then, Seth, and you kind of answered this already, but to expound upon it a little bit further, how much will it help the Eagles tonight maybe playing on a better field if the weather plays along?
Massively. Because the Eagles, this team, they're built defensively on their defensive line. Their ability to stop the run, which they're better at this year, I would say, because of the 2 young guys that's in the middle that really want to play the run, opposed to some guys that were in the middle last year that only wanted to rush the pass. I won't say any names, Javon Hargrave.
I was going to say if you weren't. All right.
And the 2 guys on the outside, when neither one of them could really turn the corner last year, because every single time they tried to dip or try to lean, they were slipping and falling. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, in that game, both teams had to play on the same field. But the strength of the Kansas City Chiefs is not their pass rush. The strength is their linebackers and Chris Jones, not guys coming off the edge. For the Eagles, it was the opposite. Going against a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, pressure is paramount. Being able to get to him, move him off his spot, keep him in the pocket, make him make the second read. That's the only way that they can beat a quarterback like this. And because of the field conditions last year, it took the strength of the Eagles' defense away from them in that game and made them an ordinary defense, specifically in the second half when they began to attack their weakness, which was stopping the run.
Mm-hmm. So it was just part of the script then. Wet down that field a little bit in the Super Bowl, have the bad grass. It was in the NFL script, unfortunately.
But I tell you what, the rain is supposed to stop before the game tonight. That field should have been covered all day, so we don't have any slippage issues. So I'm looking for the Eagles pass rush to show up and show out tonight in a major way and have the effect on this football game that it could not last year because of the field conditions.
Bill, I know you know the numbers, but when you talk about a guy like Hassan Reddick with a cast on 0 sacks, cast off his hand, he is getting after the quarterback at an alarming rate, 7.5 sacks now, just absolutely a dominant player like we have seen him be last year and really throughout the last 3 years of his career. How much will Hassan Reddick play a role in the Eagles winning or losing tonight's game?
I think the entire defensive line is going to play a big role. Not only Hassan Reddick, you have Josh Sweat, but also the interior, because if you can create interior pressure on Patrick Mahomes, that can go a long way. You look at this Chiefs offensive line, they're not that great, especially on the outside, but yet Mahomes has been sacked less than anyone in the NFL. They've only given up 12 sacks. That's mainly because of Patrick Mahomes. He's so good at maneuvering inside the pocket. So how do you combat that? Create interior pressure. Get in his face up the middle. It makes it very difficult for him to be able to step up in the pocket. Then you have Sweat and Reddick coming on the outside. That's what I think the key to this game is going to be. Can Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, Milton Williams, and Jordan Davis beat the interior of this Kansas City Chiefs offensive line? And if they can, it's going to be a long day for Patrick Mahomes.
I certainly hope so, and you're going to need that Eagles offensive line, or excuse me, defensive line, to be able to eat up when it comes to taking on that offensive line of the Kansas City Chiefs. And if we know anything about the Andy Reid years here in Philadelphia, we all know how much it was predicated on making sure that you were building in the trenches. And every single time you hear Howie Roseman speak after a draft, he speaks about the overall philosophy. That overall philosophy, though many people just might know it as good football, Eagles fans know it as an Andy Reid philosophy. Make sure you're taking care of the guys on the offense and defensive line, because the games are won and lost in those trenches. Who has the advantage tonight when it comes to two teams that, again, are on a great pace for sacks this season? 31 so far by the Chiefs this season, Seth, 30 by the Eagles to this point. Which defensive line do you think has more of the advantage in tonight's matchup?
Well, I think the Eagles have the advantage from a defensive and offensive line standpoint. I still believe that the Eagles have the number one offensive line in the National Football League. And when you look at the new young guys and the way that Fletcher's been playing and the way that the guys on the outside have been playing, I give the edge, to the Philadelphia Eagles. But they do it differently. On the defensive side of the ball, Steve Spagnuolo knows that he's got a defensive tackle that can dominate and change the game. He's got a guy in George Karlaftis who all of a sudden has come of age, and now is playing at a very high level. I don't worry about Karlaftis against our two offensive tackles. I really don't. What I worry is Chris Jones in the middle and his ability to disrupt the run game and get after the passer from that position. And then Steve Spagnuolo also knows that he doesn't have superior pass rushers on the outside. They got one guy that really dominates from a pass rush standpoint. So what does he do? In situations, he will come after you with exotic blitzes that you don't know where they're coming from. They'll show it from one side, those guys will drop out, and they'll come from another side. Or he'll bring more than you can block and leave it up to the quarterback to make the right decision. So he's not going to just sit back and zone and allow Jalen Hurts to pick him apart, especially if they can get the Eagles behind the chains on first and second down and create third and longs. He's old school. He is going to bring the pressure, and he's going to make you make quick decisions. On the offensive side of the ball, they rely on Patrick Mahomes to just make magic. The two tackles are new tackles. These aren't the same two tackles that started for them in the Super Bowl last year. So a lot of what Patrick is able to do is to manipulate the pocket and move around and get out of the pocket. The Eagles are going to have to be disciplined in their pass rush tonight in order to keep him in the pocket. And most people would say, oh my gosh, how do you say that Patrick Mahomes is more dangerous from outside the pocket than he is? But he is, because in man coverage, he's going to scramble for first downs. He can get that done. In zone coverage, he's going to move around just enough for his receivers to adjust. The deep guys are going to come back. The shallow guys are going to take off and go deep. And he's looking for the home run when he's out of the pocket and he's on the move. They have to keep him in the pocket. They have to make him play the game from the pocket tonight, because the majority of his big plays, they come when he's on the move.
Certainly, and you also talk about a guy this year in Patrick Mahomes that's running the football more than he ever has in his entire career, and that's a product of that, obviously. And he has to at this point.
The offensive line really isn't that good, and I think that shows why, they're ranked 5th in total offense. That shows why, they are 8th against the run. They rank eighth in rushing the ball, and 10th. A Patrick Mahomes run offense ranks 10th in passing in the National Football League. I don't think anybody would ever believe that number would be where it is right now. And I would submit to you, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the offensive line is not as good as it's been in the past, and he's having to make things happen more so this year than he ever has.
I believe it's Jordan Mailata leading the Eagles right now, unfortunately, in sacks allowed by an offensive lineman with 6.5. Nobody else on the Eagles' offensive line has allowed more than 3. Flip that on the other side of things for the Kansas City Chiefs. No one on their entire offensive line has allowed more than 3 sacks on that KC line. I don't think that's a brag for their offensive line. I think that's a brag that Patrick Mahomes is that good at making the right decision and making sure he gets out of the pocket, throws the ball away, or scrambles for more yards. So, Bill, let me ask you the same question now. When it comes to grading the offensive defensive line, who has the advantage here when it comes to the trench battle that's going to be going on tonight?
I agree with Seth. I think it's definitely the Philadelphia Eagles on both sides of the ball. Eagles are getting Cam Jurgens back tonight, makes their offensive line even better than what it was. But you look at the defensive line, outside of Chris Jones on the Chiefs' defensive line, I know Karlaftis, I don't even know how to say his name. Karlaftis has been playing a lot better this season. But you look at the Eagles' defensive line, I mean, they are just stacked. Fletcher Cox has turned back the clock. He's playing great. You mentioned since Reddick got that cast off, he looks like a different player. Josh Sweat looks good. You know, I think that it's definitely the Eagles' offensive and defensive line, but Patrick Mahomes is the X factor. So that's what it's all going to come down to. Seth hit it right on the head is they got to stay disciplined. The defensive line has to stay disciplined. We can't see Reddick and Sweat, as much as we want to see them get after the quarterback, crashing inside, losing contain, and letting Mahomes get outside the pocket because he'll kill you every time.
I stand corrected. The Chiefs rank 4th against in passing offense. They rank 4th, but that number is still pretty paltry. 264 yards a game. For the best quarterback in the National Football League? No,
I'm with you. I agree wholeheartedly. We've been talking about the trenches here. I want to keep it there for a minute here. Cam Jurgens coming back. Now, defensively, we're expecting Bradley Roby to be in this game. Offensively, we're expecting Cam Jurgens to be back at the right guard position to be starting for the Eagles tonight. Since Cam Jurgens has been out, that running game has all but disappeared. Getting him back, but obviously losing Dallas Goedert for his run-blocking ability is a big blow to the Philadelphia Eagles. When it comes to Cam Jurgens being back, what is the realistic expectation, Bill, when it comes to Jurgens coming back in order to help that run game? Will we see DeAndre Swift going out there and being the guy that we saw climb in 2 weeks to be one of the NFL's leading rushers, and then all of a sudden that going by the wayside? What is the impact of Cam Jurgens returning to that offensive line tonight?
I hope it's a big impact because you look at this Chiefs defense, they've been really good against the pass. They haven't been as good against the run. 17th, giving up 112 yards a game. But I think what's even more telling is they're 26th in the NFL, giving up 4.5 yards per carry. And what I like to do is I like to go and look at the games that they lost. So this Chiefs team is 7-2. In their 7 wins, the opposing teams have run the ball on average 17 times with their running backs. In their 2 wins, or excuse me, the other team's 2 wins, their 2 losses, the opposing teams have ran the ball over 30 times on average with their running backs. You just look at what the Broncos did. Broncos lose the game, giving their running backs only 19 carries. They bounce back 2 weeks later. They give the running backs 32 carries in that game and win the football game. We talk about how good Patrick Mahomes is. Well, the best defense is to keep him on the sidelines. I'd love to see this Eagles team really commit to the run. I know we've said it in previous weeks, and they don't listen. But you look at it, you have Jurgens back. You're going against a defense that struggled against the run. There is no excuse not to run the football tonight. And not only are the Chiefs good against the pass in terms of giving up yards, you mentioned it earlier, they have 31 sacks this season. So if you want to take away what a defense is good at, let's run the football. Let's commit to the run with our running backs tonight, and let's hope you see Cam Jurgens have a real impact on that yards per carry because it has dropped.
One thing to add to that as well is you go back to that Denver Broncos game, and there was similar weather conditions. It was damp, it was snowy, it was cold. I don't know so much about the snowfall tonight in Kansas City, but I know it's going to be damp and I know it's going to be cold. About 30 degrees is what we're looking at now by the time maybe the second half rolls around. So similar weather conditions that the Kansas City Chiefs did not have a lot of success in either offensively or defensively against the Denver Broncos. What do you need to see, Seth, tonight, going up against Kansas City Chiefs versus what you saw in that Super Bowl to now, what's one thing you think the Eagles really have to do tonight? I've been waiting all day to ask you this question because there's a couple of things you could throw out here. It could come to pressure. It could come to pressure at the line of scrimmage. It could come to pressure on the outside by your cornerbacks, obviously running the football. One thing you need to see tonight for the Eagles to walk away with and go, that's how they won the football game.
On the defensive side of the ball, I need to see Sean Desai have a plan for Travis Kelce. You cannot have him just running through the middle of the field, running through your defense, one-on-one, just dominating this football game, doing the shimmy shake and all that kind of nonsense. You got to get him under control, and you got to get Pacheco under control. And the Eagles have, they seem to have gotten that under control this year. They're only giving up 66 yards per game. They're first in the National Football League against the run. But Kelce, to me, is the wild card because I don't think he really has a defined route, on any play. Everything is an adjustment based upon how the defense is playing him. On the offensive side of the ball, we talk about it all the time. Bill just talked about, running the football. They do not seem like a coaching staff that really wants to run the football. They really want to pass the ball because, they want to live off of the big plays, the 20-plus yard passes down the field. But there's nothing wrong with shortening this game by running the football, dominating the line of scrimmage, forcing the Kansas City Chiefs to put 7-8 guys in the box and then attacking outside with max protection. There's nothing wrong with that. Whether Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson will employ this type of game plan is yet to be seen because we've been screaming from the ceilings ever since week 3 and week 4 where they dominated, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense and the Washington Commanders defense by running the ball 40-plus times. They've gotten away from it. They have totally gotten away from it. And I think that if they live in that world where they don't complete passes on first and second down and they get themselves in third and long situations, some of the defensive problems or some of the offensive problems, I should say, that you saw the Eagles have early in the year could resurface again because Steve Spagnuolo is just that good. He is a master at crafting up different ways and giving you exotic looks and really confusing not only your quarterback but your offensive coordinator too.
All right, now when it comes to running the football, we saw them earlier in this season, as you pointed out, Seth, be able to hit that gear with DeAndre Swift, be able to really gain yards on the ground with DeAndre Swift. To a point, Kenny Gainwell as well. We've seen Jalen Hurts throughout his career be able to gain yards on the ground. It almost seemed like an in case of emergency break glass type of scenario for the Eagles offense where if it wasn't working in the pass game, we'll just gain 150 yards on the ground and without even blinking and have a problem. They have gotten away from that since Cam Jurgens got injured. Now him being back, as we talked about earlier, should have a good and positive impact on the Eagles' run game. But can it still be as good as we saw in the early portions of the year?
Can I ask you guys a question? Do you really – are we just looking at statistically the fact that Cam is out and since he's been out they haven't been able to run the ball? Or are we looking for a reason why they don't run the ball? See, because I'm someone who believes that in order to establish the run game, you have to commit to the run game. Whether you're being successful with it or you're not being successful with it. And there were times when Cam was healthy where they struggled the first couple of times that they ran the ball, but they stayed committed to trying to get it established. I'm not so sure that he is the sole reason why. Everyone wants to make that the reason why. I'm not so sure that that's the sole reason why they haven't been able to run the ball. I'm one who believes that this team wants to throw the football. And they've shown more of a commitment to putting the ball in the air than they have to actually running the ball, whether they've had success with it or whether they haven't, ever since Cam Jurgens got hurt.
I'll answer your question, and I'm half kidding when I say this. It's because we're delusional. It's because we're in denial, Seth. We want them to be able to commit to the run. We want to see – because, look, when we see them run the football, we see them have great success.
Absolutely.
When they commit, to use your word, when they commit to the run with this offensive line and the talented backfield that they have, we see them have success. So when we're in denial, when we're experiencing a little bit of disillusion, we're looking at, well, okay, maybe it's because Cam Jurgens isn't there that they're not running the football. Maybe because Sui Opeta is somehow magically a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. I don't agree with that. Maybe Tyler Steen's a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. I don't agree with that either. So it's simply denial at this point because we have seen them all of a sudden shift into run mode. We've seen Lane Johnson with the let's keep doing this. Let's keep running the football because they know they can have success. And if they're looking to bleed the clock, if they're looking to control the clock, if they're looking to make sure that they do not have Patrick Mahomes on the field, they can do that by running the football. So when we're looking in the wheel of logic, what makes the most sense right now, it's hopefully not just the decision to not run the football. It's the very tangible thing of, oh, this player is not there on the Eagles' offensive line. That's why they're getting away from it. That's why they're abandoning it.
I would say, most of the time, teams play cover 2 because it's a safe coverage for them against it's really safe against the pass because you can keep everything in front of you. You got 2 high safeties that can cover and prevent teams from going deep. But when you go too high safety, that means that you're 6 on 6 in the box when you include the tight end. So most offenses, what they do is the minute that they see 2 high safeties, they check right now. They check right now, and they check to the run. The Eagles are one of the few teams that don't do that. If they've got a pass play on, come hell or high water, they're going to throw the ball. They're very rarely going to check to a run. So it's little things like that when I'm watching the game and I'm seeing, okay, it's almost like the opposite happens. You got 2 high safety, you should be running because you got man on blocking in the box, and you're trying to throw it. When they crowd the line of scrimmage down in the red zone, you bring everybody in tight and you try to run it, and they've got everybody in the box to keep you from running the football. Why not spread out and throw the ball when you're down in the red zone, or use it against use the opposite philosophy of how you should run your offense against a defense. If you want to load the box, guess what? We're going to go max protect. That means we got one-on-ones on the outside. If you're going to play 2 high safety, guess what? We're going to check at the line of scrimmage, and we're going to run the ball right down your throat. We got man on blocking. We can double team, come up to the second level. Why not?
Fair enough. Bill, real quick, before we get to break, I want to ask you that same question that Seth just asked. Why is it they don't run the ball? Overall philosophy or lack of manpower on the offensive line?
I think you're right. I think we're looking for answers here because I went back and looked. We talked about this before. They don't give the running backs a lot of carries in the first half since Jurgens went out. You look at the last few games, they're just not giving them an opportunity to get into any sort of rhythm, and I don't understand it. And the big one for us was the Jets game. We looked at that and said, Jets can't defend against the run, but they're really good against the pass. And what they do, they didn't give the running backs any damn carries. So I don't know. I think we're grasping for things here, but let's hope it happens tonight.
The Eagles just hate the run. I mean, let's just talk about it. The Eagles hate the run. All right, we're going to talk more, of course, about this Eagles-Chiefs matchup. Of course, the rematch of Super Bowl 57, but more importantly, as far as I'm concerned, the preview of Super Bowl 58. We have a great partnership as well here at JAKIB Media when we talk about our partnership with the EBOD Foundation. We're very proud to have this great alliance right now because as we combat Alzheimer's and dementia, we like to team up here at JAKIB Media and the EBOD Foundation as well.
Go for the polls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA State tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
My name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech, we offer 3 major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back to the Malamut Law pregame show. Marc Farzetta with Seth Joyner as well as Bill Colarulo. Adam Malamut himself will be joining us momentarily. And we are here at the Gallery Bar booking games in the incredible Ocean Casino in Atlantic City. But right now, let's head out to Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, where our man, our NFL insider and co-host of Birds 365, John McMullen, is standing by. John, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, put on your meteorology hat for a second and just give me a weather update, if you'd be so kind, of what's going on at Arrowhead right now.
It is not good right now, Mark. It is pouring. And obviously the field is not covered now. Just looked at AccuWeather, so their latest forecast has it pretty much raining for the next hour and a half or so. Should be over by about 8:15 local time, so 9:15 Eastern time, but right now it looks pretty ugly out, and we'll see how bad the field is. Certainly could affect the pass rush, and we know the narrative from the Super Bowl, and the kicking game with Jake Elliott and Harrison Butker, 2 of the best kickers in the NFL. But right now, and it's a windy rain as well, so a little bit of a problem if they were playing right now. Luckily, they are.
Hey, John, how you doing? You mentioned that pass rush, and we've been talking about it to start the show here. Patrick Mahomes sacked the least out of any quarterback in the NFL this season, but you look at that offensive line, and outside of the interior, 2 new tackles don't look like they're playing that well, but yet teams haven't been able to get after Patrick Mahomes. How much do that attribute to Patrick Mahomes? It's just he's so good inside the pocket. Do you think the Eagles are going to be able to get to him tonight?
Yeah, a ton of it. People should have learned from Tom Brady over the years, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes. Quarterbacks can control the pass rush when it comes to sacks. If they want to do it, high football IQ quarterbacks. Patrick is at that stage of his career. You're going into a game against the Kansas City Chiefs. If you think you're getting a lot of sacks, you're blowing smoke the wrong direction. I mean, he's just not going to allow it. So it's not about those numbers. It's about affecting the quarterback. It's about speeding him up. It's about getting him off of spots. It's about making him throw the football before he wants to throw the football. And that's more esoteric in the pressures. I think, big Jalen Carter gain, but not necessarily sacking the quarterback, just making sure Patrick Mahomes is uncomfortable and speeding up as much as possible.
John, question. They've got about an hour and a half before the game kicks off. Are the players out warming up in this torrential rain right now?
Yeah, the players, a number of players are out there working out right now. So, yeah, I mean, they're getting used to it, trying to field. So I hope we don't hear any of those conversations about guys changing cleats during the game, Seth, that we often hear over the years. Everybody's trying it out, and hopefully it clears up. All day they've been saying it's going to clear up by game time. It looks like it's going to extend a little bit into game time, but the field is affected because the field isn't covered right now.
So I mean, I'm just curious. I asked because I'm curious how long the field has been uncovered. Is there like a time where the players have to be out in the field that they took it off, or have since you've been at the stadium?
No, it's been uncovered since I got here, and I got here pretty early. So, all essentially about 3-4 hours before game time. It hasn't been on. They're not putting it on. This is the field, and it's going to be a wet field.
Yeah, I think we're going to be having those conversations, John. As much as you don't want to have them, if that's their mindset, we're going to be having
it. It would certainly seem like it. Just put the quarterback in that machine. John, how about this? One of the biggest storylines to come out after the bye week has been all about our man Jalen Hurts taking that knee brace off his knee, saying that he feels good, saying that, again, it's not much of a story, but the bye week couldn't have come at a better time. What do you think of the realistic expectations when it comes to Jalen Hurts post-bye week, and what type of runner we're going to be seeing and what type of scrambler we're going to be seeing from Jalen Hurts in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I hope you see Jalen Hurts as close to 100%, because I think, I heard you guys talking about the run game a little bit. I think it's that simple. They ran the football effectively when he was healthy. They haven't run the football effectively when he's not healthy. You can talk about the running backs all you want. You can talk about the offensive line all you want. But if he's not threatening the defense, and it's not about efficacy, it's not about numbers, but if he threatens the defense and forces them to account for his ability to pull the football, and he can manipulate the spacing of the defense, that's when DeAndre Swift becomes effective. Until that returns, I don't think you're going to see an effective running game, at least to where Eagles fans want it, because their running backs aren't capable of putting up big numbers without that threat that Jalen is the so-called +1 in the running game.
John, a lot of these close games are decided on third down, and you have two of the best third down offenses in the league going up against each other tonight. But the Chiefs' defense has been a lot better on third down than the Eagles' defense has been. What do the Eagles have to do to get off the field on third down against Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense?
Well, you want them in third and long as much as possible, and as simple as that is, I mean, third and manageable is going to be really, really difficult against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. As you mentioned, offensively, the Eagles are first in third down offense, first in fourth down offense as well, by the way. Chiefs are fourth in third down offense. But defensively, the Eagles are 25th. A lot of that has to do with the issues in the slot. Hopefully that calms down a little bit with Bradley Roby's return. We'll see how that shakes out. Kevin Byard getting more comfortable as well should help. I think it's going to be better in the second half of the season as a whole because those guys are back. And now you have, think about it, 4 of your 5 secondary players are really veteran-savvy players. Maybe they're not what they once were, but Slay, Bradbury, Roby, Byard really know how to play, and I think that alone will help the Eagles on third down defense.
John, I just saw the inactives, and I saw that Rashad Penny is inactive tonight, so just throw the run game out the window. I'm just being facetious. On the defensive side.
Yeah.
So on the defense,
I think Rashad. I gotta look it up. Real quick. Rashad Penny, 5 carries for 17 yards. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much he was going to help anyways.
So on the defensive side of the ball, obviously they've had problems, with their pass defense. They ranked 27th 29th against the pass. With 2 weeks off and some time to do some self-scouting and come up with, some creative ways to take away the pass, to get guys healthy, to get the older guys on the outside some rest, and get Bradley Roby back, a veteran with experience, in the slot. How do you see this defense faring against this pass offense? Obviously, Travis Kelce is the focal point. You're not really afraid of most of these other guys beating you deep, but you've got to have a remedy for that, and the question is, do they have a remedy for it? I mean, has Nick Sirianni addressed it, or has Sean Desai talked about that, in press conferences this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eagles understand, look, got to cobble it together as best as possible. And if you look at the overall results, it's pretty good, right? 8-1, but they have really struggled in the slot. I mean, Cindy Brown, Eli Reid sort of ended the first half of the season, not had ever played the position before. They were learning on the fly. There were some good moments. There were a lot more bad moments. And that's where I think returning, he's not what he once was, but again, that he knows how to play the position. Not going to have all those mistakes that you have with startup costs for rookie players. Not only rookie players, but rookie players learning new positions. I think that alone is going to improve the situation. Now you got to hope Bradley Roby stays healthy the rest of the season, or you're back in the same quagmire, so to speak. So that's one part of it. The second part, I think, is, as you point out, Seth, that they don't really have that second threat past Travis Kelce. So in a lot of ways, the Chiefs, for their reputation, we think about Patrick Mahomes, and rightfully so, we think about Andy Reid and say, Chiefs have a great offense. Hasn't been that great for the past 4 or 5 weeks as teams have kind of figured out nobody can hurt them. And until Rashee Rice or Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore turn into a valuable sort of second, Robin to Travis Kelce's Batman, teams are going to do their best to bracket Kelce, limit that as much as possible. And the other guys aren't making plays, so I think that'll help the Eagles tonight.
John, when it comes to an advantage, we were kicking this around a little bit earlier in the show. Do you see a distinct advantage in this game for the Eagles in their advantage against the Kansas City Chiefs tonight? One that might differ a little bit than what we saw in the Super Bowl last year, especially in that first half when the Eagles were having so much success. What big advantage do you see the Eagles having going into this game, if any?
Well, the Eagles always, it's funny, a lot of times we ask Nick Sirianni what you like about a particular matchup. And I'll always go back to the offensive line and receivers no matter what, because the Eagles think they have an advantage against everybody in the NFL with those two groups. And the same situation comes to fruition today. I think Bill asked me that on Birds 365 this morning. It's like every week it's the same thing. And it's not the same thing because of laziness. It's because they have a really good offensive line and two really good receivers that other teams can't deal with. The problem this week is the third part of that three-headed monster. Dallas Goedert is not available, obviously. And we'll see if Julio Jones can get a little bit more. To me, that's interesting. If you look at last year when Dallas was out, they played the same personnel groupings. They played almost the exact same amount of 11 personnel, and Jack Stoll pretty much played those snaps. However, the targets were divvied out differently, and all of a sudden you saw a spike to Wes isn't the third receiver. Julio is now. So in theory, if they do the same thing, and I don't see wouldn't because they were 5-0 without doubt last year, I think those targets are going to be divvied in the direction of Julio Jones.
Sticking with the offensive side of the football, we all complained about the red zone offense to start the season. They started out in the bottom of the NFL. They've been getting better every single week. They're sitting at number 12 now in the league, and you look at the last 3 games, they're converting over 71% of the time once they get to the red zone. What are you seeing differently with this red zone offense? Are they just executing better? Has the play calling been better? Why has it been so much better over the last few games?
Well, I think they've evolved a little bit. I think teams came into this season really trying to stop Jalen Hurts' running effect in the red zone, and they kind of overcorrected to that degree. And the Eagles, I think, were trying to sort of pound the square peg in the round hole, despite the numbers on the defensive side of the football. Now they've kind of loosened it up a little bit and gotten away from that a little bit, where they're just trying to pound the football early, and all of a sudden you're in 3rd and long. So they've become a little bit more well-rounded in the red zone, and I think that has led to a little bit more effectiveness.
John, you talked about the Eagles missing Dallas Goedert tonight. Obviously a huge loss and an expanded role for Julio Jones. What's your thoughts on, utilizing DeAndre Swift a little more in the pass game and Kenneth Gainwell more in the passing game? I think that let me look at the numbers here right quick. So Kenneth Gainwell has had 18 targets and he's caught 15. DeAndre Swift has had 35 and he's caught 30. And Nick often talks about the short passing game being an extension of the run game, especially on a night like tonight when the ball is going to be wet, it's going to be slippery. You might not be able to, to really get the push and get the run game going the way that you like to, and you know that you need that third piece, and it might not be Julio Jones in a massive way. How about, what's your thoughts about incorporating these 2 running backs more in the passing game?
Well, I think Jalen is. I don't think Jalen is a dump off kind of guy as a quarterback. I don't think he likes to do it. I don't think it's one of his effective traits. So we've been talking about this since the preseason, because DeAndre Swift does have some skill as a receiver. So does Kenny Gainwell. And I thought maybe you would see, them getting some targets down the field, maybe some wheel routes when they run these empty sets, use DeAndre Swift. It's interesting, Swift was working a little bit with Aaron Moorhead during practice this past week, trying to sort of cross-train with that receiving skill. He did that earlier in the season, before the season opener as well at New England, but they haven't gotten him involved down the field. I think he's averaging 5.5 yards a reception. Kenny's under 5, which tells you that dump-off game isn't working. And then the bubble screens. I thought maybe Swift would be most effective there, because the Eagles haven't been a great bubble screen team, but they run it a lot. And they usually run it with the receivers. Now, Dallas Goedert is the one who runs it somewhat effectively, but he's not available. So maybe you can get Swift involved that way. But I think it's going to be, and again, I go back to last year, because Quez went to over 5 targets a game when Dallas Goedert was out. I think that's an indication that they want to get the football down the field a little bit more, and that's an indication that it's probably going to be Julio, or if it's not Julio, Olamide Zaccheaus more than the backs.
Just a quick thought. You gave us the numbers that the running backs are averaging, and you said that based on these averages, you don't feel that it's working. I beg to differ. If you can get 4 or 5 yards on first down, now that allows you to do whatever you want on second down, knowing that you've got third and reasonable. And if Nick Sirianni is going to talk about the short passing game being an extension, then there's nothing wrong with if you want to throw on first down and get 4 or 5 yards, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that any of us are looking for, the running backs to be home run hitters that, 40, 20, 30 yards downfield. we want to see them be able to stay in, second and short or medium, or third and short situations, because like I know, if they get behind the sticks with Steve Spagnuolo, he's going to start dialing up blitzes and forcing Jalen's hands, because he's not going to sit back and allow Jalen to just operate from that pocket tonight.
Well, Seth, people get mad when Nick calls the pass plays an extension of the running game. But you're right,
Yeah.
They can be. And certainly the bubble screens are, and that's where I thought, maybe DeAndre would get more involved. If you look at good receiving backs around the league, whether it's Christian McCaffrey or Austin Eckler, you're not talking about numbers near receivers, but you are talking about significantly better than 5.5 and under 4. So, yeah, if that were consistent, but obviously that's just an average, and occasionally you're going to hit one for 15 or 20 yards that's going to skew that average. And I haven't seen the effectiveness on a consistent basis when they throw the football to the running backs. And by the way, I don't think it's running backs' fault. I think it's the quarterback isn't really comfortable with that aspect of the game, or doesn't really enjoy it that much. And he's a really good player. So you play to the strengths of the quarterback, and I don't think that's one of his strengths.
John, of course, we appreciate you giving us all the inside scoop here with the Philadelphia Eagles, as well as the weather in Kansas City. But before we let you go, as per usual, what is John McMullen's official prediction for Eagles-Chiefs in this Super Bowl, not only rematch, but I believe Super Bowl preview?
Well, the weather has me wavering, but I picked the Eagles to win the game. The Eagles are a better football team. Kansas City, as strange as it sounds, has been struggling mightily offensively over the past month. I don't think it changes today in this kind of weather. I'm going to stick with the Eagles, but lower scoring than most people expect. 23-16 is, I think, what I had it.
Ooh, 23-16. Love it. John, thanks so much. Safe travels back, but of course we'll talk to you again at halftime as well as the post-game show as well. Thanks so much, John McMullen.
All right, thank you, guys.
John McMullen, Birds 365, our NFL insider, dropping in from Kansas City. When we return, we're going to have more Eagles-Chiefs coverage, of course, and Adam Malamut from Malamut Law will be joining us here on the Malamut Law pregame show.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA State tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA State tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
They're carving them up, and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut and Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
My name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech, we offer 3 major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back to the Malamut Law pregame show here at Ocean Casino at the Gallery Bar booking games. Marc Farzetta along with you with Seth Joyner, Eagles Hall of Famer, Bill Colarulo, Legal Hands to the Face podcast, as well as the Philly Sports Power Hour right here on the JAKIB Media Sports channel. And now we'll bring in our fearless sponsor himself, Mr. Adam Malamut, joining us to break down Eagles and Chiefs. And Adam, I got to know this. You hear that Jalen Hurts is taking the sleeve off his knee. The knee brace is off. What are your expectations for Jalen Hurts and the mobility that he's been able to show previously in his career? What are your expectations for the rest of the season?
I want to see Jalen play Jalen's game. Enough of this, whatever tentative offense he's played, enough of the unforced errors he's had. I want Jalen to come out and be the Jalen of last year, right? Have that confidence. If he's taking the knee brace off, I expect him to be more confident.
No, I'm with you there. And, Bill, I know you're tired of the word gauntlet. One of the things I'm tired of hearing is rematch, Super Bowl rematch. That's in the past. I focus on the word preview. You have the best team in the AFC right now taking on the best team in the NFC in this Monday night matchup. What do you focus on going into this game? Do you focus on what could have been in Super Bowl 57 or what could be about to be happening when it comes to Super Bowl 58?
Listen, it's one game at a time, but I already bought my tickets for Las Vegas. So I want to make very clear, I am feeling jilted by the fact that nobody at this table has drafted me for their golf team yet. So for the fundraiser, so I'm making a personal invitation in Vegas. I'll take care of the golf. I'll take care of the greens fees. I'll get you guys out there. But I feel good. I feel like the Eagles are as good of a team as there is in the NFL. I think that they should win today. I think that they should be in the Super Bowl, and I think that the Kansas City Chiefs on the AFC side are by far the best team. Mm-hmm. So this should be this should be a matchup that gives the Eagles an opportunity to avenge their Super Bowl loss.
All right, in the act of avenging the loss and getting that type of revenge, we've all talked about one thing in particular we want to see from the Philadelphia Eagles in order to win this game. When we sit here to do the post-game show and we're talking about it then, the Eagles will have done what, in your mind, to make sure they beat the Chiefs this time around?
No turnovers and control the clock. They've got to run the ball. You've got and I say this every week, they have the best offensive line in football. Use that offensive line. Control the football, control the clock. They've got Swift. Jalen can run the ball. I know that Rashad Penny's inactive, but Boston Scott's out there. I mean, they've got other guys that can run the ball. Kenny Gainwell, run the ball, take advantage of the clock. And if they do that, I heard John's prediction. If they do that, I do think that this is a low-scoring game. And, contrary to the powerful offenses of last year, these teams have not played like that. If the Eagles control the ball, they win.
Mm-hmm. All right, now, since we open it up here on the panel, Rashad Penny has been inactive. He is inactive again tonight. And I just want to preface this by saying I in no way, shape, or form am looking at Rashad Penny as if he's Barry Sanders, okay? However, However, it seems like in a game where especially running the football in the early goings of the game would be a good thing, it would be at least good to have Rashad Penny activated tonight. Seth, I know we talked about it briefly with John McMullen. Where are you on not having Rashad Penny again inactive on a rainy night in Kansas City?
Hey, listen, I'm not even fighting it anymore. It's not listen, they have a plan, obviously, and he's not a part of the plan. If they're going to come out and call the offense the way they've called it, throughout the last 5-6 weeks, he's a non-factor anyway. They're going to throw the ball, and I know John talked about him going down working with the wide receivers coach this week. The bye week is the type of week where you can do some of that stuff. But I think, he's not down there. That is DeAndre Swift. He's not down there just to be down there. That's got to be part of their game plan, to believe that they can get him out of the backfield in some of these blitzes, hit him hot out of the backfield, and use him early in downs if they're not having success running the football with short passes. Even if it's 4 or 5 yards. The Achilles heel for this offense tonight is them getting in third and long, second and long situations because, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I've watched Steve Spagnuolo in this defense long enough to know that he is situationally going to come after Jalen Hurts and speed up his clock. He's going to try to take away the first read and make him go to the second read, therefore making him leave the pocket. And they've got enough speed. They're one of those rare defenses where you have linebackers that can flat out run, linebackers that can go get and can run with Jalen Hurts. So that's their game plan. So they're going to have to figure out a way on first down to have wins on first down so they're not in these second and long, third and long situations. And I'm not one of these. Normally, if you're playing against a Patrick Mahomes team, I'm saying, and you guys heard me even say in the Super Bowl, in order for them to win this game, they have to keep the possessions below 10 possessions. I don't necessarily feel that way in this game because I feel like the Eagles have enough firepower and the Kansas City Chiefs offense is not as potent as it's been, that they can go tit for tat with this offense if they have to go 12 to 13 possessions in a game.
Fair enough. Even more reason when you talk about that pressure, disguising blitzes, to go back to what you were saying about Steve Spagnuolo, even more reason to be optimistic about this being the perfect time to not only get that bye week, but Jalen Hurts is close to 100% healthy as we have seen him maybe all year. I know there's a theory that right now the injury was sustained in the Jets game. He hasn't looked the same to me all year long for the most part, with the exception maybe being that game against the New England Patriots to open up the season. So him being healthy right now, Bill, what do you think the expectation is going forward with Jalen Hurts and the mobility factor of his game?
It's interesting. It could really go either way. I'm not sure because he's trying to become more of a pocket passer, and we've seen him have a lot of success as a pocket passer. A number I threw out, I think, on your show earlier this week that surprised me and I think surprised a lot of people is we're all talking about how Jalen Hurts is running the ball so much less than he did through the first 9 games last year. Well, if you look at the stats, he's not. He ran the ball 94 times through the first 9 games last year, 88 times, through the first 9 games this year. But it's just how he looks when he's doing it. He just doesn't look the same. He doesn't look like he has that explosiveness. So we'll see. But, like we talk about wanting them to run the football more, it's the same thing with Jalen Hurts. Is he going to commit to running the ball, or is he trying to be more of a pocket passer? And I think we'll find out tonight with no restrictions, hopefully, on that knee.
I don't want to see him run the football. He's a quarterback. I want him to play quarterback. And then I want him to use his skill sets to make plays happen when things break down. Now, there's nothing wrong with reactivating your RPO system, especially on a night like tonight, because they've gotten away from it because of the injury. So if he's healthy enough to run, I don't mind 2 or 3 of those. But I don't want to see Jalen Hurts running with the ball 15 to 16, 17 times in this football game. I want him to play quarterback from the pocket and then allow the running backs to run the football, and then you can incorporate some play action passes and some things like that, to offset, him having to run. But, this whole thing, it's another one of these excuses, in my opinion. Oh, Cam Jurgens. Oh, Jalen Hurts is hurt. No, I want my quarterback to be a quarterback, not a running back. because the same thing that the reason why he's been injured, and I'm not saying that he got injured because he was hurt, but I'm saying the more he runs the ball, no matter how much more dynamic we see the run game as being when he's actually running the football, the more that he runs the game, the more opportunity you have for him to get injured. And I don't want to see that, because if he's injured or he's inhibited in some way, it's going to affect our ability to get to where this football team wants to be at the end of the year. He has to play quarterback from the pocket and use his skill set. When everything that goes to hell in the handbasket, now use your athleticism and scramble and run. And Bill, I would submit to you that if you went back, if we could go back and we could break down those 88 runs, okay, I would submit to you that half of those runs are scrambles, much more so than they are called run plays. That's a fact. That's a fact. The NFL just doesn't do a good job of separating that out. So we have this illusion that he's run the ball 88 times. No, he didn't. Now, there's a lot of tush pushes in there, and they count those as runs. But the majority of the time that you see him run, those are scrambles. Those were intended pass plays that broke down.
You know, and Seth, to your point, those 88 runs and the 50% that were scrambles, the bulk of his turnovers came on those scrambles. So if we're going to protect the ball and we're going to protect our quarterback, you're right. He needs to be a passer first. As soon as he rolls out, it becomes a liability.
So I like the way that the Eagles posed this before the season started. And Nick Sirianni, I'm going to ask you about Andy Reid in a second. Way back machine. But I'm going to ask you this question when it comes to Jalen Hurts, because I like the way the Eagles phrased this before the season. Nick Sirianni talked about before the year embracing the uniqueness of Jalen Hurts' game, and I think that's a great way to put it. Now, that's not saying whether or not you're abusing him in the run game. It's not saying you're abusing him in being able to buy time for his receivers to get open. That's just simply embracing the unique. Now, that could be the guy that squats, 700 pounds for tush pushes, or that could be the guy that is able to scramble to buy that time or get those yards. So what is the happy medium? Where's the middle of the road? Where do you draw the line between abusing and embracing the uniqueness of his game? Adam, I'll ask that question first.
You know, it doesn't have to be a game tempo thing, right? Doesn't it have to be what's happening in the game as the game goes? I mean, look, the quarterback's the field general on the offensive side. He's got to be able to feel what's happening. If he's running for his life and he's scrambling and he's throwing the ball around and he doesn't need to, you know, I think that puts us in a significant disadvantage. You know, I don't know that you can cookie cutter say this is how it should be. It's got to be a game tempo. If they're setting it up right and they're running the ball and he's using the run to set up the pass, it's interesting because looking at Dallas Goedert being out and having the opportunity to really use Julio Jones for the first time in a significant role tonight, it gives them a set of hands, and it's not the Julio Jones of 5, 6, 7 years ago, but it's still an incredibly athletic, talented wide receiver who's big enough to fit that tight end role. You know, it gives him that opportunity to be that pocket passer or quarterback who's not a run-first guy. So, you know, I think that the balance is really going to be a game tempo decision, right?
So I agree with you, Seth. Do you agree with that? You go by tempo of game, or do you just go by this feels like he is running too much and we're abusing the uniqueness?
Well, it all depends. It depends on the flow of the game. You know, like Adam said, if it's a situation where you need him to run in order to win the game, then you run him. Other than that, what I want to see in the game plan is you just want to show the defense and Steve Spagnuolo just enough of him running the football to make him have to worry about it. But you don't need a steady dose of, you know, RPO, where if I'm a defensive coordinator and I'm thinking, okay, every single time he puts that ball out, we're going to take away the run and we're going to take away the slant and we're going to make him run the football. And this defense is fast enough to keep him under control. We want to force him to run the football, okay? That's the danger that you get in when you do it too much. But if you do it just enough to make them have to adjust to it and make them have to worry about it, then mission accomplished. Because now you can hand the ball off, okay, and play the way you want to play, and you can run your offense the way you want to run it. And every once in a while here's a little RPO, here's a little bit of Reid, here's a little bit of something to just to keep you honest. That's what the running game is about today more than anything. It's not about going out and running the football 35, 40 times in a game. It's being able to run the ball enough to keep defenses honest, to make defensive linemen and linebackers and safeties play the run honestly. Because if you can't do it, there's no such thing as play action pass. There's no need even sticking the ball out if you're not running it with any kind of effectiveness. You know, you want to make them, keep them honest, and when you can rip off 4 or 5 yards on first or second down, put yourself in 3rd and short or 1st and 10 situations all over again.
Oh, the Eagles have no 1st and 10. Not with the tush push. They only have first and 9. Unless it's, a 3rd and 3. You don't run the ball to. Anyway, that's a conversation for 2 weeks ago. Bill, where is that line? Where would you put the line when it comes to uniqueness of the game and abusing the uniqueness of the game?
I don't want to see them eliminated because I think the beauty of the whole RPO style offense and the beauty of a quarterback like Jalen Hurts is a lot of offenses play 10 on 11. They have 10 guys going up against 11 because the quarterback is not a threat other than to throw the football. What makes this defense have such a hard time with a Jalen Hurts-led offense is it's officially 11 on 11. At times, it's 11 on 10 because you're not even blocking the defensive end. You're just reading him. You don't even have to block him. So it gives you more players than the defense has to defend you. So that's why, as much as I don't want to see Jalen Hurts take unnecessary hits, I don't want to see them eliminate that element from the offense. Where the line is, it's a tough question. But you have to keep running the offense the way you run it because it's so difficult for a defense to defend when they're basically 11 on 10 when it's usually 11 defenders on 10 offensive players.
Well, a lot of that, Bill, is dictated by how the defense is playing you. For defenses who don't have an answer for it, yeah, that can be your mindset. But with a defensive coordinator like Spagnuolo, he had an answer for it, in the first half of the game. And throughout the entire Super Bowl, he had an answer for Jalen Hurts not being able. That's why he was so successful throwing the football, because they wouldn't allow him to run. They wouldn't allow him to get out of the pocket. So it's the thing about the read option and the RPO, it's not the play call that's called by the offensive coordinator. It's the read that the quarterback is making. And Jalen Hurts last year made all the right decisions. 9 times out of 10. He made the right decisions to keep it or give it or pull it and throw it or whatever it was. He made the right decisions, okay? The adjustment has been this year we're going to play with his mind. We're going to play with his mental. That's why the passing game was such an afterthought, was so difficult to get on track at the beginning of the season because they began to show him some things that he did not see last year that confused whether he should give it or pull it or throw it. So a lot of it's going to be determined by how they're playing it. Okay, if they've got an answer for it, then you got to get out of it and you got to stay out of it, unless you're just doing it to make the defensive coordinator and the defense think about it. So that's why I say I want my quarterback to be a quarterback.
No, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I draw the line at the called plays, even in the RPOs. When I want to see a run play, I want to see a run play. A lot of the run game is running the RPO. Well, then take away the O part of it and the P part of it and just, call a run play. How about a good old-fashioned run play? Line up in the I. I don't care. Just make sure you're running the football with an actual running back. And that's something that I look at when it comes to Jalen Hurts, that you can not abuse the uniqueness of his game, and instead you can embrace the uniqueness of his game. And as far as him running or him scrambling, I'm fine with him doing it as long as it's there. I don't want him forcing it. I don't want him taking the big hit. One thing that I absolutely love about Jalen Hurts' game about versus other quarterbacks is that other quarterbacks, and we saw it here recently, even with a guy like Carson Wentz, he didn't run smart. He tried to take that big hit. He tried to get that extra yard like you would see from a tight end, more so than even a running back after catching the football. Jalen Hurts, for the most part in his career, when he has run the football, he has done it in a as safe as possible way, where he's either scrambled, bought time, threw the ball away, or ran to get a big gain and got out of bounds or went into a slide. My issue so far this year has been he has gone into that slide way too early, even beyond the caution flag being waved. So that I find to be very interesting, and with getting the brace off his knee, I'm eager to see whether or not you see a little bit more of that aggression from Jalen Hurts and being able to scramble for 5-10 yards, getting out of bounds, avoiding the big hit, and doing it in a smart, heads-up fashion. Because I think that's also what separates him from other quarterbacks, is how smart of a quarterback he is when he does decide to run with that football. There's an interesting thing going on tonight. I had a little bit of a slip earlier. I just said the name Andy Reid. Andy Reid, of course, was a coach here in Philadelphia for 14 years, winningest coach in Eagles history. With a win tonight, he becomes the winningest coach in Kansas City Chiefs history. No coach in the history of the NFL has that distinction with 2 different teams in the National Football League. When we look back on Andy Reid's time here in Philadelphia, Adam, I'll ask you this question first. When we look back on Andy Reid's time here in Philadelphia, we know about the Super Bowl, we know about the last 5 minutes of the Super Bowl, run-pass ratio, all that. When you think back on Andy Reid's time here, what do you think separates Andy Reid with the Philadelphia Eagles and Andy Reid with the Kansas City Chiefs?
That's a tough one. I think that maturity is a big piece of it, right? As a professional, as a coach, in Philadelphia, it was his first opportunity as being to be a head coach. He had a talented squad. It became a lot more talented when T.O. arrived here. And, look, they won a lot of NFC championships or division championships. They made it to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, that didn't work out as we hoped. What was that, 2004? And that didn't work out the way we wanted it to. But, if you look at the team that he's assembled, and I think he has a lot more control in Kansas City than he did in Philadelphia, it's his team. And he's got great players around him. He's got the coaches that he's familiar with. Seth's been talking about Spagnuolo, who's not a stranger to Philadelphia. He's put his people in place. And there's nothing better than having your team. One team, right? We talk about one team. Malamut Law, it's a big thing. One team. He's got his people, his team, and these guys are out there playing for him. In Philadelphia, I think that they were still trying to learn about him. I think they were still trying to believe in him. And I think that it was happening, but, he just didn't have the maturity as a coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach now.
4th on the all-time win list.
Right.
Pretty incredible. Bill, what separates Andy Reid Philly versus Andy Reid KC, other than barbecue and cheesesteaks?
Lombardi trophies, man. I mean, that's pretty much it. I thought he had a lot of success here, just could never get over the top. I had the luxury of actually working for the Eagles when Andy Reid was the head coach, and I kind of saw firsthand players loved him, loved playing for him. He was a leader. We still build our teams the way Andy Reid built his team, which is in the trenches. We talked about it earlier. He had a lot of success here, just never was able to get over the top for whatever reason. But I always wish Andy Reid a lot of success, but not tonight.
Not tonight, certainly not last year, or maybe this upcoming Super Bowl. Seth, when you look back on Andy Reid's time, what's the difference?
To be honest with you, I don't think there's much of a difference. I really don't. To Bill's point, he was able to get over the hump and win the big one where he wasn't able to do that here. I think that, he and Veach worked hand in hand the same way that he worked hand in hand with Joe Banner here. The way the teams are constructed are similar in a lot of ways. They went after the quarterback early. They realized they needed the franchise quarterback. He got it in McNabb. He got it in Mahomes. The first couple of years, they struggled defensively, and he went and he found his Jim Johnson. He went and found, got, Steve Spagnuolo to come in and temper the issue, because for a long time they had a really, really good offense, but they were lacking on the defensive side of the ball. And lo and behold, this year, they're better on the defensive side of the football than they are on the offensive side of the football, believe it or not. You look at the wide receivers, Yeah, he had Tyreek Hill for a while, and he only had T.O. for a minute. But if you look at the other wide receivers, it's kind of like here in Philadelphia. A bunch of them are no-name guys, that they try to bring in and bring along and develop, and just they're squeezing more juice out of that orange than anybody else thought that were actually there. The biggest difference I see is that even with a guy like Shady, even with a guy like Westbrook, even with, Buckhalter and all those guys, he never really committed to the run game here the way that he does there. And look at the running backs that he's had at his disposal there. He runs the football more now than he ever has during his time in Philadelphia. And I would venture to say, I believe that if Andy would run the ball at the clip and at the rate that he runs it now in Kansas City, he would have won 1 or 2 Super Bowls when he was here.
I appreciate all three of you not saying what some people have already said in the chat on the show. And what do you think they've said in the show? The difference between Andy Reid in Philadelphia and Andy Reid in Kansas City.
Oh, geez.
I'm not going there.
Patrick Mahomes. That's what they've said. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And yes, that is a ginormous difference, but that's also just scratching the surface on what could be different about both
Yeah,
parties.
but I mean, if Donovan McNabb has, if Donovan McNabb has the two wide receivers that we have right now, with the tight ends that he had, and the running backs, they most certainly win.
And the rules in the league that they are now.
Absolutely. But you can't tell me that Donovan McNabb with second-tier wide receivers was supposed to accomplish, what Patrick Mahomes is accomplishing right now. His numbers are down this year. Why? Because you'd be hard-pressed to tell me what wide receiver on that Kansas City Chiefs offense really scares you. Nobody. But when they had Tyreek Hill, everybody, the whole damn league was scared to death, So I'm not going there. I'm not going to go so far as to say, that that's the issue. I just think that, as great a job as Joe Banner did and as great a job as Andy Reid did, they never got it right with the wide receivers. You're not going to win with Todd Pinkston and Fred X and those type of wide receivers. Those guys never got to the level of wide receivers that you needed. They were good 2 and 3 wide receivers, but you never had the number one guy. And when you got the one guy the 1 year, got you to the big dance, and then it all went to hell in a handbasket.
Pretty much. All right, when we come back, we'll continue our analysis. We'll also give you our official predictions for Eagles, Chiefs, and what I'll call the Super Bowl 58 preview. All that coming back here on the Malamut Law pregame show.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA State tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA State tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
My name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech, we offer 3 major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back to the Malamut Law pregame show here from the Gallery Bar, booking games ahead of this Eagles-Chiefs matchup for Monday Night Football. Eagles Hall of Famers Seth Joyner, Bill Colarulo, as well as Adam Malamut himself. I'm Marc Farzetta. We're going to get right into our predictions, but before we do that, I just want to mention this stat that I heard earlier today, and it's fantastic. When it comes to Jalen Hurts, do you know he has 12 consecutive wins against teams with a winning record? 12 consecutive wins against teams with a winning record. Only 2 quarterbacks have that same mark since 1950. One is Peyton Manning. The other is Vinny Testaverde. But Peyton Manning, okay, shares that mark with Jalen Hurts going into tonight's game. Adam, I'll ask you first. What is your prediction for Eagles-Chiefs tonight?
24-21. It's going to be a field goal. This is going to be an Eagles win, and I think they're going to keep it close. I think these teams are familiar with one another. They're going to come out. They're both going to try to control the ball, and I think it's, something. It's not going to be the shootout that some people are expecting it to be.
All right, Bill, you and I talked about 12 hours ago, almost maybe 10 hours ago on Birds 365. We were very similar in our predictions. What do you have right now, and has the weather affected it at all?
The weather's not changing my opinion here. I really think that what's going to dictate this game is exactly what dictated Super Bowl 57, which was the turnover battle. You look at this Eagles defense through 9 games, they only have 11 takeaways. Last year at this point, they had 20. You look at the offense. Last year through 9 games, they only had 7 turnovers. This year they have 13. They went from a plus 13 turnover differential last year through 9 to a negative 2 this year. I think that changes tonight. As good as this Kansas City Chiefs offense has been, as good as Patrick Mahomes is, they're 26 in the league. They turned the ball over 17 times already this season. 10 interceptions for Patrick Mahomes. I think you see the turnover battle won by the Philadelphia Eagles tonight, something they didn't do in Super Bowl 57. I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning 27-23, going to 9-1, and a big win on the road against Andy Reid in Arrowhead Stadium. I can't wait for the game to start, my man.
All right, that's a very close score right there. Seth, I'm going to give you the last word on this. I'm going to say it right now, the weather has affected my score. The weather has affected how I see this coming out. I do still have the Philadelphia Eagles winning tonight. I originally said earlier today 28-23. I'm going to go with a score of 24-20 in favor of the Eagles. I think they do establish that run tonight. I think they do make a commitment to that run tonight. And I also think we see Jalen Hurts have his best game of the season. I know that's going to be something said, especially with the way he played going into the bye week. So I have the Eagles 24-20 with a win over the Kansas City Chiefs tonight. Seth, what say you?
Bill, it's interesting that you talk about, the turnovers. One of the precursors for turnovers is pressure. And with the Eagles having 60, 70 sacks, in the regular season last year, that's pressure. If you look at Patrick Mahomes and you look at the majority of his turnovers, they come when he's under duress, when he's under pressure. When he has time and he's comfortable in the pocket, he makes the right decisions and he makes smart decisions. It's pressure. It's that pressure that causes him to make mistakes in football games. I think the field is going to be in good enough shape for this pass rush to get after him tonight. The defensive line will handle the run game and force him to throw the ball probably more than Andy Reid will want to throw the ball. And I just get the sense that, listen, I picked the Eagles to win this game, and I pick them to win 28-20. But I kind of get a sense, man. I got a feeling about this game. I get a sense that the Eagles, psychologically, this is a big deal, a bigger deal to the players than they're leading on. And I think they come out just breathing fire tonight. in a massive way. And even though I'm going to stick with my prediction, I believe that in a lot of ways, this game is going to be over in the third quarter. Listen, call me crazy, call me what you want to call me, but there's something about losing that game the way they lost last year that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth on that in that locker room. Not only the quarterback, not only every player on the defense that was nullified. They got no sacks against Patrick Mahomes after having 78 through the regular season and the playoffs. I get a sense that they're going to explode tonight, and it's going to be in front of the entire world, and finally, the rest of the nation and the rest of the pundits around the country are going to see the Eagles be who they can truly be, and then they're going to get the respect that they're due.
Smith-Schuster is not on this team anymore. However, let me tell you, he left them a gift. When he talked smack after the Super Bowl, he was wearing that red uniform. He was wearing the Chiefs uniform, and I agree with Seth. This team is not going to forget the bulletin board material that Smith-Schuster gave after that Super Bowl.
Calling an audible. I'm now going 48-2. Eagles win this football game because I'm going to go out to Kansas City. I'm ready to play in this game right now, folks. We appreciate you guys watching here with the Malamut pregame show ahead of the Eagles and Chiefs Super Bowl preview, not rematch as far as I'm concerned. So for Bill Colarulo, for Adam Malamut, and of course Seth Joyner as well, I'm Marc Farzetta. For our friend Derek Gunn, please keep sending the good vibes, keep sending the prayers. Still dealing with a family matter, and we hope to have Gunner back in the not too distant future. He will be chiming in on our post-game show, so don't be missing that following Eagles and Chiefs. But before we let you go officially, we want to tell you about this great foundation that we're working with, the EBOD Foundation, the EBOD Foundation. You've heard us talk about it a lot over the last couple months of the season. And just like football, strength lies in numbers, and strength lies in its players working together as a team. And the more people who support Alzheimer's research as well as caregiving can help out in a huge way. So this month, make sure you're helping out when it comes with JAKIB Media and Alzheimer's awareness, as well as Dimension, combating that with the EBOD Foundation to lead the charge for a cure. Your donation today not only supports the critical mission, but also enters you to win a trip to the big game in Vegas. Text SCORE to 833-202-9835. That's 833-202-9835, and you will be entered in the contest. Also, make sure you vote with promo codes Team Miss, Team Seth, Team Farzi, and Team Gun. Yes, that's Gun with two N's. So make sure you're voting for Derek Gunn as well in our golf tournament and take advantage of all that we have to offer. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Malamut pregame show. We'll be along with the halftime show, Bill Colarulo and I, as well as John McMullen from Kansas City's Arrowhead Stadium. Until then, go Birds.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
We're here to show you a better way to spend your state income taxes and get the money to where it's needed to most to the thousands of qualified kids.
What we like about Blocks is they really know where the need is.
This program ensures that their dollars come 100% into these kids for their tuition assistance.
If you are able, Blocks makes the EITC piece go very quickly and very smoothly.
Turn your PA State tax liability into need-based scholarships and receive a 90% tax credit.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Any professional sports coach will tell you there's no substitution for preparation. At Malamut & Associates, that is a tenet by which we live. We prepare from day one for victory. Anything less is not acceptable.
My name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech, we offer 3 major services. The first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagle.